Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about Resident Evil Extinction, the third Resident Evil film, this one from 2017. And it begins with echoes of the first movie from the franchise, as Milla Jovovich's Alice wakes up in a deserted mansion. She explores the grounds and is forced to evade several deadly traps, and then kills a guard with heretofore unrevealed telekinetic powers. Surprise! And then she gets killed by a mine, because it's not the real Alice. It's a clone, in fact, one of hundreds that we see being dumped into a trench after being killed. This is all something to do with experiments of some kind being run by the malevolent Umbrella Corporation. But enough about that, because we now switched to the original Alice, who is roaming the zombie-ravaged wastelands of southwestern United States. Shortly after discovering that she too has developed telekinetic powers, Alice encounters a convoy of survivors in the desert. They're in Nevada, somewhere like that. They're definitely in Nevada, actually, because they go to Las Vegas. And she helps this convoy fend off a flock of murderous mutated crows, which probably sounds quite silly when I just say it, but it's actually an effective scene. It's well done. And from there, the film tracks two stories in parallel. The efforts of Alice and the convoy to survive, and the efforts of the Umbrella Corporation to capture Alice via the use of their troops and their semi-domesticated zombie minions. This all leads to lots of fighting and dying, and people turning into monsters and doing more fighting and dying, because that's what happens in Resident Evil movies, basically. So, when Extinction came out, I really liked the look of the trailer. Its emphasis on the deserted and desert-filled remains of Las Vegas. So despite the fact that I had been disappointed by the previous film in the series, I saw this one at cinemas. And I was disappointed. That didn't stop me from buying the film when I saw it available for cheap, though. And when I sat down and watched it again, I enjoyed it more than I did during that first viewing. It's certainly not flawless, but it has its positives as well. So let's talk a little of column A and a little of column B. So unfortunately for the film, I think one of its biggest flaws is the opening, which as a first-time viewer put me off right from the start. Now, I think the intent of the opening scene is to surprise and wrong-foot the audience with its fake Alice, and then intrigue them with the mystery of, what is going on. That'll draw them into the film, right? And, the original Resident Evil did this pretty effectively, in my opinion, with the nasty little elevator scene at its opening, and then Alice waking up in the deserted mansion. I think, unfortunately, Extinction falls foul of genre tropes and how they will shape audience expectations. I don't think it's likely most viewers will guess all the ramifications of the scene, because, I certainly didn't. But ultimately, this is kind of hand grenade territory. Even a misguess is close enough that I think it damages the scene's purpose. Compounding that, the movie follows up the fake-out death of Alice with an action scene that is supposed to be exciting, because there is literally no sense of risk. Clearly they aren't going to kill a second fake Alice, because, what's the point? That means this must be the real one. And, well, clearly, you're not going to do a fake out with the fake Alice and then kill the real one. So, why are we watching this? It's just kind of a way to fill 5 minutes of time and show us how badass Alice is, I guess. As if we didn't already know. I don't think the first 10, 15 minutes of the movie work that well. But once that initial mini-step is out of the way, I feel like the movie mostly corrects course. It introduces, or in some cases reintroduces, a bunch of characters, sets stakes for them, and proceeds to make their life as difficult as a zombie apocalypse, a cinematic zombie apocalypse ought to be. There are still a few eye-rolling moments in here, such as the old and overplayed somebody gets bitten by a zombie but doesn't tell anyone shtick. That they don't only go to that well, but they then draw out water out of that well for a very long time. But it's a pretty minor thing. Overall, this film does a good job of showing how, despite their best efforts, even a reasonably well-organised and capable group are going to be under constant threat in this world. And it creates a decent amount of tension and uncertainty over the odds of survival for most of them. Not Alice. We know Milla Jovovich isn't going to die. She's, the director's wife, for one thing. And I also like the aesthetic of the film. The yellow and ochre tones, the ruins of Las Vegas claimed by the desert, it all looks really cool. The middle section of the film is it's really solid zombie action fare. And in my opinion, the strongest part of the film. Now, as I said, it wouldn't be a Resident Evil movie if somebody wasn't turned into a monster, whether that be a standard zombie or something more grotesque, and sure enough, a new kind of mutated abomination serves as Alice's final boss fight in this film. Apparently, this is a tyrant, an enemy from the original computer games that is a big, powerful biped with ridiculously oversized claws and an exposed, pulsing heart that is its only weak point in the games, that is. Unfortunately, the movie version has a far more muted appearance. It's basically clearly just a guy in a wrinkly rubber suit. It's a better suit than the monster from the previous film. It's less lumbering and clumsy, for one thing, which is really important. But it really doesn't impress me very much as the final big bad. Or at least the final big bad for this film. Resident Evil Extinction's ending, after his defeat, makes it very clear that Alice's struggle against Umbrella will continue, and that in the inevitable fourth film, she'll have new weapons to help her in that struggle. And it's that looking forward to the next film that is probably the real problem here. This film's big bad is a bit of a damp squib because he comes across just like a mid-game mini-boss, a speed bump on Alice's road to the real finale. She fights him, she beats him, via another callback to the original film, because this movie loves its callbacks to the original film, but the outcome never feels in doubt. It's just a little bit underwhelming. So yeah, we've got a really solid middle wrapped around two not quite so successful endings, or beginnings and endings, like the two extremes of the film, not so good. And I think that's probably why, when I first saw it, I was disappointed. Second time going in with low expectations, I was obviously much more entertained. I was like, in the middle, I was like, actually, this bit's really good. I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I think it's important to go into this film with the right expectations. Now, speaking of going into movies with the right expectations, next time, because I am a glutton for punishment, I'll be looking at Killjoy 2, Deliverance from Evil, the 2002 sequel to the memorably awful film Killjoy. But that's next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one, and I hope you enjoyed it.